Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront Updates. The gameplay reveal of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is finally here because they just showed us like a 13-14 minute gameplay demo here at EA Play. Unedited footage from an alpha build, as far as I understand, of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, roughly 3 hours into the game. So Cal has learned some force powers, which I think is probably good. I'd imagine in the beginning you might have almost no force powers, and then you gradually learn more and more through the skill points that we see them unlock in the gameplay. And here I just wanted to give you my thoughts on the gameplay, what I think about it, and also bring up some different points and things I noted in the gameplay. A bit of a breakdown slash impressions video. So yeah, let's dive straight into it. And let's start off with the visuals. I think the game looks fantastic. It does not look Frostbite good, that's all I can say, because Frostbite is probably the most realistic engine you will have at this point for a game. And if you've played Battlefront 2, we're kind of spoiled with the graphics there. Don't get me wrong, it still looks really good here, and I don't think the visuals will be a problem. The only thing I thought was basically, this looks great, but imagine if it was in the Frostbite engine. However, that might also have meant that there might have been more bugs in the game. So there's ups and downs for both of those engines. This is made in the Unreal Engine, in case you didn't know. So I don't think the visuals is a problem, so to say, but it would be nice to see a single player game in the Frostbite engine as well. But again, I don't think it's an issue. It still looks fantastic with the environments, especially since they're on Kashyyyk, one of the more beautiful planets, with all the wildlife and the nature and similarly. And I think one thing that a lot of people have discussed already and will talk about is the combat and the what they call thoughtful combat. I both like and really like some parts of it, but also I think that it looks a little bit janky at times, like the lightsaber combat. But if we start off with the kind of abilities, I think it's really cool to see how you have like force pull, force push, force throw, and you have some type of like slow motion ability. I'm not sure what they officially called it, but where you can like kind of freeze an enemy and the time, and then you can dodge around them and stab them. And also one of the coolest things in my opinion was when he used the blaster bolt freeze that we see Kylo use in The Force Awakens, and then he pulled the enemy and put the enemy onto the frozen blaster bolt. So if you can do things like that, it really shows the depth in the game. Sure, he could just have ran in and slashed him down, to be honest, but it shows that there's more depth to it, and when you learn to combine all of those abilities, and probably later in the game as well, when you've had more skill points and even potentially learn more powers, you might be able to pull off even cooler things. Like for instance, just the simple thing of force pulling and then stabbing someone through the chest, I thought was pretty darn neat. As for the lightsaber combat, it's a bit hard to judge. I think they said that you have like dodge, parry, and all those kind of things, and block, of course, deflect, as we also see. But there's not a lot of UI elements. I'm not sure if that's kind of stripped down for the sake of the demo. And obviously, you're supposed to have played this game for 3 hours when you get to this point. But it was hard to judge exactly how the lightsaber combat worked, in my opinion. How you were blocking, and like how when you were fighting the Purge Troopers, it just kind of felt like he was standing there taking some hits, and then he hit him back, and then it was a little bit hard to judge, and I feel like I need to play it myself to properly do that. Some of the movements and animations did feel a little bit clunky, a little bit slow. Again, this is an alpha build, so it could be improved, but that's at least something I just, as an impression I got when watching. It wasn't as snappy as maybe I would have liked it to be, but maybe that's part of the thoughtful combat, when you really gotta think about each ability you do and when you actually engage. And there was a lot of cool details that I at first didn't really think about, but when you look into it, it's deeper than you might have thought. Like for instance, I didn't really understand what the Purge Trooper was doing at some points, but if you look here, you can actually see how when Cal uses the force pull, he uses his I guess vibro staff to kind of stop the force pull by shoving it into the floor, and then he uses the force pull to lunge towards Cal in like an attack manner. So basically he uses the force pull to his advantage, which is really cool, and shows that he's kind of trained in the in how to counter force abilities, because he doesn't have force abilities himself. He's just a trooper, but he was able to counter that and actually attack Cal through the force pull. So that was a detail that I thought was really neat. As for Dismemberment, it seems like there's no Dismemberment in the game. They do have very clear visuals though when you hit someone, because there's kind of like a glowing orange part wherever you slash someone, whether you stab them in the chest or you kind of slice them in half with a lightsaber. And it does look a little bit strange when you kind of basically cut a trooper in half and they fall down, and you see this lightsaber cut all over their like chest and back, but they're not actually falling into two parts. I understand why though. They can't just have like freaking kebab stormtroopers laying on the floor. It just doesn't make sense in a game that's probably going to be for kids as well. But it was just something I thought about when you kind of see the lightsaber go straight through and have that glowing thing around their chest. Like maybe some dismemberment for like arms and legs could work. I don't know, it might just be me being a little bit crazy, but it was something I thought about. But at least you get like a visual indicator of where you hit, which I think is good. BD1 seems to be a nice companion that can do a little bit of everything, hack through doors, give you a bit of like a visual overview by scanning, and also as far as I could understand, he can heal you as well. It looked like that at the end at least. I'm not sure exactly if how the health is gonna work, if you can just like heal whenever you want with BD1 or if the health regenerates. That's something I'm not entirely sure of, how the game is going to act with that. If it's always like, okay, you're always going to run around with full health, but your health might go down when you're in combat and then it goes back up, or tries to engage with like 10% health left sometime. I don't think so. I think it's going to be more of a, you either die in this fight or you survive and then you get back full health. Potentially. I'm not entirely sure. Story-wise, it seems pretty interesting. I mean, it's hard to judge just by this 15-minute clip, but we're on Kashyyyk. It's nice to see a little location that is known. I'm sure there's going to be new planets as well. But something we know, of course, that there was a lot of involvement with trying to free Wookiees and the Empire's enslavement of the Wookiees. And, of course, Saw Gerrera. It's really nice to see some returning characters just right away, basically. I'm not sure how many others we might be seeing that we've seen in other canon material, whether it's movies, comics, or series. But seeing Saw Gerrera in there was a very nice surprise. And in case you didn't know, it does take place roughly 5 years after the Revenge of the Sith. So that's also why there's stormtroopers instead of clone troopers, as far as I understand. But there are also a lot of details story-wise that you can see, such as when we're in that like little spider pit. I'm not sure what those spiders were called again. You can see like a Phase 1 clone trooper helmet laying in that pit, showing that, well, obviously the clones were there fighting multiple years earlier, but during that time they were actually on the Wookiee side. And a lot of other good details that were just fun, like of course seeing these two scout troopers saying, "At least we have the high ground," and then Cal gets up there and slaughters them anyways. And also the things like where you can choose if you want to be sneaky or kill them, like when there was the spiders fighting the stormtroopers. They also said afterwards that if you want to, you can just let them finish each other off and sneak past them, but you don't get any skill points for that. So if you want to go in there and fight, you can do so. I think most of us probably do want to fight, because both we want to get our skill points, and also it's pretty fun to fight. That's why I want to play a Jedi. I want to slash my lightsaber and use my force powers. So, but it's also good that you have the option to skip it if you actually want to. In terms of like the force powers overall, they did confirm that it would not be like a dark side path. I think I never really expected that. I know there's been Star Wars games in the past where you get to choose side, but knowing how kind of controlled Lucasfilm are right now, I don't think they would allow a game where you choose how this story will go. But they want this to be a canon story that fits into the universe, so they can't have a character go both to the dark side and the light side depending on what you choose, because then it doesn't fit into the full timeline. At least that's how I felt. Like when he answered that question afterwards and he said, "Can you go to the dark side?" He just said no. I think what he actually meant to say is no, because Lucasfilm would not allow us to do that. So it's the ups and downs of having a canon game. Of course, we have games like Force Unleashed where you could have different endings, but then that didn't link into the rest of the universe because it's not a canon game either. So yeah, overall, I would say that I'm pretty excited for this game. The things that I'm worried about were that it looked a little bit slow. Lightsaber combat looked a little bit janky at times, but I'm also excited for the thoughtful combat of kind of like trying to take it a little bit slow and try to combine your abilities. If you want to, it looked like you could just run in there and slash them down, especially the normal stormtroopers. But if you want to freeze a blaster bolt and then pull the enemy into that, you can do that as well, which is pretty neat. The lightsaber bolts did look like they traveled a bit slow. I'm assuming that might be for gameplay reasons, that so you have time to like deflect and move, but it looked almost too slow sometimes. I mean, in the movies they're pretty fast, and they're using like super fast reflexes that we realistically can't do to block them. But yeah, still, it looks good story-wise. We don't know much other than, of course, he was a survivor of Order 66, and I do, however, like that it seems like we're gonna be able to kind of start from not having a lot of force powers and then growing them gradually through the skill point system and through Cal's growth. I think that's more fun than starting off being all powerful. But I think that's all my thoughts for now. Obviously, I think you could dissect this gameplay even further, which I might do next week, go into every little detail. But I think I covered most of my impressions, and similarly. And also, lastly, I wanted to show you this, the pre-order items you will be getting. I'm not a huge fan of pre-order bonuses. I'd rather them have deluxe editions that does not have gameplay items, because in that case, it's like if you don't care about cosmetics, just skip the deluxe edition. But now they're kind of forcing you to pre-order if you want to get these cosmetics, such as orange lightsaber, different hilts from Majito, Umbara, as well as skins for BD1, and digital art book and director's cut behind the scenes videos. It's some pretty good perks, to be honest. It's just that I'm not a huge fan of being like pre-order, because you should kind of always wait, see how the game is good, then buy it. But also, who am I kidding? Of course I'm gonna pre-order it. I'm just putting it out there that I'd rather people pre-order it because they're confident in the game, not because of they feel forced because of the different cosmetic items or rewards that you get. But yeah, I think the game does look good, and I'm definitely excited to play it. There are some concerns, like I mentioned earlier, but nothing major, I would say. It's kind of what I expected, which I guess is a good thing. A single-player story game, good lightsaber combat, really cool force powers, and yeah, we'll see how it pans out. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the force be with you.